Ebola.
Ebola. Bats brought the tiny Ebola germs, too small to see, so small, yet so dangerous. Without realizing, my grandfather rubbed a little blood in his eye. Ebola germs came in. Days went by. Then grandfather got a terrible fever and weakness. We thought it was malaria, but he was and diarrhea. His fever got even higher. I ran to get the nurse. But grandfather had already died. I was heartbroken. The nurse thought it would be Ebola, a disease caught from bush meat, but which spreads from person to person. Others in our region had already died of this new disease. Unless we understood the disease and followed the rules, it could spread further and kill many more people. She explained that Ebola was in the body fluids of someone who was sick or had died of Ebola. Their sweat, tears, saliva, vomit, diarrhea, urine, breast milk, sexual fluids, and blood. When we touch a sick person's body, the Ebola germs can get into small breaks in our skin or into our eyes, nose, or mouth. The Ebola germs spread into our body and make us sick. When somebody dies of Ebola, that body never touched the dead body. The nurse advised us to wash our hands with soap and water. Right? She contacted the trained burial team. The burial team came. They comforted us and explained what they had to do to protect us. The team wore protective clothing that kept them safe from the dangerous germs. They sprayed Grandpa and his body with chlorine to destroy the Ebola germs. They put his body safely away in a bag. To prevent the spread of Ebola, no one could touch the blood of anyone who had died with signs of the disease. They also burned his mattress, bedding, and clothes, anything that might have his germs. All these actions made us safer. It was too great a risk to follow all our traditions, but we still honored Ebola. Our chief gathered all together after grandfather's death. He explained that it's natural for us to fear Ebola, but if we trust in our health workers and follow their rules. The nurse explained to us, when a person has symptoms such as fever, don't touch them. Get them to the treatment center right away. They will have the best chance of surviving and they won't spread Ebola. She advised us to wash our hands with soap and water many times a day. The whole village agreed to follow these rules. Since we all had close contact with grandfather, we were at risk of getting Ebola. We had to stay home. A health worker to see whether we had fever or signs of sickness. We would show signs within 21 days if we had Ebola. Many days passed, and I thought we would all stay healthy. But one morning, I found my mother burning with fever. I knew I couldn't touch her. She was now contagious. My father came in. He told me he was taking my mother away to our uncle's house in the nearby village. He was afraid to take her to the treatment center, afraid he'd never see her again. I knew I had to stop them. I was young, but I stood up to both of them. I told them if this could be, she must go to the treatment center right away. We needed to trust in our health workers to save her, save ourselves, and save our village. I saw in their faces that they understood. Running away would only lead. My mother tested positive for Ebola. They found her a bed. At first, the health workers looked scary, but I knew they wore the suits to protect themselves. And inside, there were normal people like the nurse. They took good care of my mother. They gave her fluids, medicine, and food, and helped her body stay strong to fight Ebola. I missed my mother very much, but I could still on the phone. Sadly, some people in my village didn't survive, but my mother got better day by day. Soon, we were able to see her from a safe distance. One day, the nurse announced that my mother would live. Now we were safe to hug and kiss her. It was a day to celebrate. Our village followed their rules. We trusted our health workers, brought our sick for care right away. We hoped for the safe burial team when one of our people died, and we all washed our hands with soap and water. Our village survived Ebola. Yours can too.
This is the story of how cholera changed my village. Tiny germs of cholera, small to see, spread through the river. So small, yet so dangerous. Without realizing, women carried cholera home in the water. Cholera on their feet. Unwashed hands spread it too. We swallowed cholera germs in our water, on our food, and on our fingers. It happened so fast. But my father was very sick. He had diarrhea that looked like and poured out of him. I was so scared. I went for help. I never rode so fast. One look at my father and the nurse knew it. We had to work fast to save him. We made a special drink to help him. First, we made the water safe. We filtered it through cloth and then we mixed half a teaspoon of salt and 6 teaspoons of sugar in 1 liter of this safe water. It tasted like tears, not too salty. I worried my father would die before my eyes, but he soon felt a little stronger. The nurse explained to me that not everyone who swallows cholera germs gets sick like my father, but they can still spread the disease. Now I needed to take safe water to my village and teach them how to protect themselves from cholera. I saw a girl carrying water. I told her she could make the water safe by adding chlorine drops and waiting half an hour. There was a man about to eat with unclean hands. I told him to always wash his hands with soap and safe water after going to the toilet. Only with hands could he eat safely. I saw villagers spreading cholera into a river. I told them we needed to dig latrines far from the river, at least 30 meters away. Important to keep our village clean. I found a mother preparing unsafe food. I told her, first, we must wash our hands with safe water. Then, we had to wash and peel the food, cook it, and always eat it hot. And I spread the word throughout my village and ran to find my father. I was so happy to see he was better. Our village became healthy. Now we can boil our water to make sure it is safe. We always use latrines and always wash our hands after. Food is safe from flies, washed and peeled and cooked. And we always wash our hands before cooking and eating. We made our village safe from cholera. Spread word. Your village can be safe too.
Interconnected and increasingly globalized world. Thanks to international jet travel, people and the diseases they carry can be in any city on the planet in a matter of hours. And once the virus touches down, sometimes all it takes is to spread the infection throughout the community. Hunter-gatherers roaming the wild savannas, we were never in one place long enough, and settlements were not large enough to sustain the transmission of infectious microbes. The advent of the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago, and the arrival of pioneer settlements in the Middle East, people began living side by side with animals, facilitating the spread of bacteria and viruses between cattle and humans. Epidemics and pandemics come in many shapes and forms. In 2010, for instance, a devastating earthquake struck Haiti, forcing thousands of people into temporary refugee camps. Within weeks, the camps have become breeding grounds for cholera, a bacteria sprayed by contaminated water, triggering a countrywide epidemic. But the most common cause of epidemics are viruses such as measles, influenza, and HIV. The great antigenic shift and has occurred throughout human history. The first recorded pandemic ports, from where the virus was carried by rail to London. 9 countries worldwide, and more than 1,000 people were dead.
Right now, download the game for free using the link in the description below to